This week, we're going to talk to Sixten Funquist. He covers the NHL and the SHL and the Allsvenskan League, which he will explain to us in a moment. He lives out in Sweden, and he is going to talk us through all of the players that the Kings own the rights to who are playing in Sweden. So now we bring you that conversation with Sixten. Linköping, Sweden, Sixten Funquist. How are you doing today, Sixten?
I'm fine, Jesse. How are you?
I'm excellent, thanks. Yeah, look, our pleasure. Listeners may recognize the name. It's because you and I have spoken a number of times over the last, year and a half, 2 years about Swedish prospects playing within the Kings system. So that's what we're here to do today, talk about Kings players playing out there in the Swedish leagues. Now, I say leagues because there are two leagues playing in Sweden. If you could do us a favor and just explain to us the difference between the SHL and the Allsvenskan League.
Yeah, so comparing it to North American sports in general or hockey, in Sweden we got a promotion and regulation system. So the SHL is obviously the top league in Sweden, and then Hockey Allsvenskan is the second tier. So the teams playing in Hockey Allsvenskan are actually battling for promotion to be promoted to the SHL, and the bottom team in the SHL will be relegated or play qualifications. I can't really remember because they've been going back and forth on this. So, but there's a promotion relegation system right now. So, or always has been, I should say. So, there's actually a fierce competition in signing players, and obviously the best players goes to the SHL. Part of this weird season where most of the NHLers actually have ended up in Hockey Allsvenskan. But so Hockey Allsvenskan is literally below the SHL.
Now, you and I talked about this before, and I even went to the internet. I went to the Wikipedia page, which I know if I was writing a book report wouldn't be allowed. But I went to the Wikipedia page to try and figure out the relegation system because you were a bit fuzzy on it. And the Wikipedia page was not helpful at all. It sounded like there's a playoff at the end of the year.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a playoff in Hockey Allsvenskan where the winner will be promoted to the SHL. Then I'm kind of lost as well because nobody's really talking about this. There's some sort of pandemic grabbing all the news right now. So, but yeah, there's a playoff. So the old kind of promotion relegation system we had was that the bottom two teams in the SHL or former Swedish Elite League played some sort of qualification series. It was literally called the qualification series with, I believe, 4 of the Hockey Allsvenskan teams. So they met each other twice. So it was a 10-game series, and the top 2 teams were promoted. That's the way it used to go, and it was kind of fierce. And having been a huge fan, obviously, that's how I started my own hockey kind of following. The fans go bananas when a team gets promoted through that system. So, in a way, it's a big loss that they moved on from it. But I'm getting the feeling that they might change it again because they're going back and forth. So we'll see what happens. But it's an awesome thing whenever we got fans in the stands because everyone's kind of traveling. We're not a huge country, so people literally travel around the country following their team. So it's an awesome experience. Both for players and fans.
Do the fans change when their team gets relegated or promoted, or do they kind of stick to their team no matter what happens to them?
Fans in general stick to their team.
Yeah.
There's no swapping teams. If anything, a team that gets relegated often sees a surge of hardcore fans, joining up behind the team to get the team back to the SHL or to be where they see the team to be belonged, so to speak. Then again, sponsorship deals are affected greatly by relegations and promotions, I should say. The TV deal is a massive difference between the SHL and the Hockey Allsvenskan. I think it's a matter of about $3 or $3.5 million. So it's quite a lot for a small league per team, I should say. So it's a lot of money. So yeah, it's a huge difference in terms of financial status as well. Yeah.
Let's talk about 2 teams in Hockey Allsvenskan, that relegation league. I'm sure that's not what they prefer to be called, but the secondary league, we'll say. First, I want to talk about Samuel Fagamo, who was drafted by the Kings last season, or last draft, not the 2020 draft, but the previous draft is what I'm trying to say. He's played 15 games, got 8 points. I've seen highlights of a couple of his goals. Really an incredible shot. What's the word out in Sweden about Samuel Fagamo? There are a couple journalists out here who seem to think he has a chance at cracking the Kings lineup this season.
I do as well. I mean, he's a great talent, and to be fair, looking at Hockey Allsvenskan and compare it to anywhere near the NHL is difficult because there's a massive skill difference in the teams playing in Hockey Allsvenskan. The worst teams wouldn't have a chance. So a player like Fagamo should really play in the SHL, but due to regulations, he can't. That's why he's in Hockey Allsvenskan, much like other NHLers being loaned out during the pandemic. The rules are that the players loaned to the SHL must stay through the season no matter what. So that's why we see most of the players going to Hockey Allsvenskan because they don't have the same regulations in terms of when the players or how long the players have to stay. But getting back to Fagamo, yeah, I could see him crack the LA Kings lineup given where the Kings are right now and where Fagamo kind of is in his career and his trajectory. So yeah, for sure, I would agree with that.
He's playing for Södertälje. Is that a team with a shot at promotion, or are they sort of middle of the pack in Allsvenskan?
This year they're the middle of the pack. They've had some really bad years in the past. They used to be an SHL team, and they've actually won a few championships back in I believe the 80s or so. So it's been a while since they had their glory days. But in the past they've had some troubles, getting the chemistry in the team and the organization going the right way, and kind of turned the page there. So I'm not saying they'll get the promotion or even be close to it, but they're playing way better than they've done in the past. And Fagamo and the other NHLers are, of course, a huge part of that.
Is there something about his game in particular that you think translates well to the NHL, or some people have said he's a master of all, or a jack of all trades, master of none. He's sort of very good at everything, but there's no one part of his game that he really excels at.
I think pretty much not everyone, but most of the younger guys coming out of Sweden now are they're skating very well, and they can adapt to the smaller rink quite quickly. I'm not saying that wasn't the case before, but I can see Fagamo kind of making a seamless transition to the NHL in terms of skating, his stick handling. But yeah, like you said, he's probably a middle six kind of guy, probably bottom six to start with. But then again, he can excel in that role. I should say. I would say depending on who he plays with.
Another player who's already made the transition to the NHL is Carl Grunstrom. He's playing for Björklöven also in the Hockey Allsvenskan. It feels like, just because of his age and the waiver, rules, feels like this is sort of make or break season for him. I think most people are expecting him to start the season with the LA Kings whenever that is. He's got 8 points, 2 goals in 10 games for Björklöven. Any input on Carl Grunstrom? Grunstrom.
First of all, I thought he'd crack the lineup right away coming over from the Leafs. So because he's that kind of, like, I would say he's much like Fagamo. Playing in Björklöven this season, he's playing for a powerhouse team. That's a team I expect to, if not be promoted, be there fighting for that chance to the very end, because they're insanely good. The other week they steamrolled a team like 9-1 or 9-2 or something, so they're really plowing through their season pretty much at will. Having said that, looking at Grunstrom's stats, I kind of expected a bit more. I really did. But then again, it's a stacked team. He doesn't have to perform night in and night out because they've got guys doing so, or kind of filling the void for each other, so to speak. I can see him starting in the Kings this season and trying to earn his spot. Yeah.
What's the ceiling for a player like Grunstrom? Now that he's on a powerhouse of a team, maybe he doesn't have to perform like you're saying, but if he were to perform to his ultimate standards, what from seeing him play, what do you think his ceiling is?
That's a good question. His ceiling, I don't think I should say he's a top 6 kind of guy, but maybe a middle 6. I could see him playing in that second or third line and doing so very well. I mean, didn't he score in his debut for the Kings? I believe so. I mean, he's got the skills. Just give him the ice time, and he needs to, I think much like any other young guy coming over or getting that kind of second chance in the NHL, he needs to be able to kind of fail and continue to try a bit, if that makes sense. Because I can see his confidence being a bit shot, to be fair, in the NHL, having gone through what he went through with the Leafs, and then whatever happened. But yeah, I can see him playing a middle 6 role. I feel like I'm using a safe answer here, but it's honestly what I think about him.
I mean, look, middle 6 means the only limitation is he's not a top line forward, and there's just a lot of really good players that are top 3 on their team in the league. So I don't think that's knocking anybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Last player playing in the Allsvenskan, I believe, Johan Sodergran. Now, he was sort of a later round pick, and I think sort of a longer shot to make the NHL. But with 12 games, 3 points, playing for Almtuna, he's a big guy. What is he, a bottom 6 player? Is that his ceiling? Is that what we're looking at out of Johan?
I think so. I know Johan was the reason we kind of got in touch in the first place, because Johan has been playing in Linköping, and he did so very well in his last seasons in Linköping. He kind of established himself pretty quickly from basically out of nothing. So it might have gone a bit too fast for him moving over. I think I said so. I've said so a couple of times before, talking to you, Jesse. But then again, when he actually made the move to North America, I thought he could battle for an NHL spot right away, given his size, given his physicality to his game, and also those kind of board battles, winning those and winning the puck down in the corners. I don't know what kind of happened to him. I actually tried to get hold of him a couple of weeks ago, but I've managed to lose his contact info. So I'm gonna do that and talk to him, because I can see him playing in the NHL. I don't know the role, but given his size, and he is pretty quick to be a big fella. So, I mean, every team needs those physical players to kind of pave the way. And I can see Johan being one of those guys if he's willing to do the work.
Ontario was there were just too many people and not enough minutes. It was more crowded on defense, but even at the forward ranks, as the season went on, they acquired some more veteran players to help win them some games, and I think that sort of gobbled up minutes from other players. Now, we're really quickly going to touch on some players playing in the SHL, and we're going to start with a player that, frankly, I've forgotten all about in preparation for talking to you, because the Kings acquired him with a trade at the draft. He hasn't been in the system, and he wasn't drafted. So that's Leash Anderson. He just completed play in was it the Karlia Cup? Was that?
Yeah, the Karlia, yeah.
But I'm more curious what your perspective on his NHL career. Now, I know you probably aren't intimately familiar with him or his camp, but he was drafted by the Rangers. There was something. I don't know even. Yeah, there was something, and he wound up returning to Sweden. Any thoughts on how his career has gone to this point?
I don't think his career has gone the way we thought it would, obviously with him returning to Sweden. But then again, he's one, if I may say so, hell of a player here in the SHL. He's so much fun to watch. I do believe he's got a top 6 potential in him still for the NHL. He's got a vision that is NHL worthy. It's all a matter of getting that confidence back, getting him to feel the trust. Because he is an NHL player. If not in the making, he might already be one playing in the SHL. I really do believe he'll play in the NHL one day again.
I have to ask about the silver medal incident, because I'm super curious what the perspective on that was on the Swedish side of the ledger. In America, there was a split between oh, that's poor sportsmanship. He's acting like a spoiled brat. And then the other half was, oh no, that's great. It just shows how committed he is, how passionate he is. If you don't, if second place is first loser or whatever you want to say. I could well imagine the Swedish perspective being somewhat different on that. But what was the reaction to him tossing the silver medal back into the crowd?
I think it was pretty much the same because thanks to or due to social media, there was, of course, and this has been debated forth and back ever since, I suppose, whenever someone brings it up. But I think it was pretty quickly overshadowed. I can't, to be honest, I kind of forgot about that incident until you just mentioned it. But to me, I mean, yeah, I might have done the same thing, being as disappointed as he was. But then again, he might have regretted it going forward in his life because it's still a silver medal. So, but getting back to that split, yeah, there was a split. There was a bit of a conversation about it, but to me and to people around me, I think it was something of nothing a bit.
Do you think
it got blown out of proportions a bit?
I mean, there's so much pressure that's put on young hockey players, and we have to remember they're teenagers. And how have we acted when we were teenagers playing a sport and comparing that to these kids? They just have the stage put on them or put before them. You know what I mean? So it's like they're doing this and the world just happens to see it. But there's got to be so many people that have, broken a stick, thrown their helmet, done something after a tough, loss. Silver medal is still an incredible feat. But it's just like, do you think people put so much pressure on these kids to be perfect or what? Like, should people be more forgiving of this sort of thing? I know we were just saying like, oh, we kind of forgot about that until just now. But like, is this something that people should be like, they're kids? Or should we be putting more pressure on them? Like, no, you're kids, but you're on a big stage, so act accordingly.
I really do side with the first option there because they're just kids. I mean, it's a huge stage. Some of the guys might have not. Well, of course, if you play the World Juniors, you have been on some sort of stage before, obviously. Right. But I honestly, they're just kids. You're allowed to make those kind of things, and I don't think you should read too much into it.
Now, he was the captain of that team, and he was the captain of the Team Sweden at the recently completed Carling Cup. So, I mean, never mind his hockey play on the ice. It sounds like Sweden thinks he's, a decent leader to constantly give him the C, right?
Yeah, he is. And he leads by example quite often. Then again, Sweden didn't have a great tournament. They've got 1 point out of a possible 9. So that kind of tells you a lot. But then again, the Karjala Cup was a bit of a bubble. We don't know the COVID implications. We don't know nothing. So I don't, much as I view the Karjala Cup and any other European Hockey Tour tournament as some sort of exhibition games, basically. I don't put too much weight into it because the teams you see play in these kind of tournaments are rarely the teams you see play in the World Championships, for instance, or the Olympic Games if there's one of those coming up. So I don't read too much into it. Of course, there's hockey, but no.
All right, we're going to end with a pair of defensemen. We're going to start with Tobias Bjornfoot. Drew Doughty raved about this guy. I think it caught everybody off guard with how effusive he was in his praise. Is Tobias Bjornfoot an NHL defenseman already?
I think so. I really think so. He's an awesome guy. Then you're going to have had their COVID kind of things now, so they return to play. I think they played yesterday because I didn't work yesterday, so I can't really remember. But I think you're going to play yesterday, or if not, they're playing tomorrow, Thursday at least. So when they face off against Linköping, actually. So yeah. But getting back to Bjornfoot, I think if he just can find his footing a bit in the SHL, because a bit of confidence. But to me, he's an NHL defenseman, and Drew Doughty. I remember Drew Doughty kind of taking him under his wing, so to speak, and that tells you a lot. It really does.
And finally, we're going to talk about Helge Grans. I recently spoke to Andreas Lilja, former LA King, assistant coach for the Malmo Redhawks. I know you've spoken to Helge, Sixten. I'm just going to let you say as many nice things about him as you want now. I don't even have a question.
Well, I think when I nailed the pick of Helge Grans, I compared him to Drew Doughty. He's a right-shot D with offensive capabilities, playing a decent two-way game. We should remember he's a young boy still, so that two-way game will improve. Much like any other Swedish prospect or most prospects coming into the NHL this nowadays, he keeps his foot solid on the ground. He doesn't get carried away on or off the ice. When I talk to him about the NHL, he's still like, yeah, if I make it, I need to work harder. I need to improve this. I need to do that. Though, blah 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 blah. But looking at his play now, Malmö have kind of crashed and burned in this season. They're having a rough time, and Helge's kind of point production has, if not come to a complete halt, then it's been paused, so to speak, because Malmö are getting shelled at the moment. But looking at his offensive capabilities, he kind of pounces whenever he gets the opportunity, and he doesn't seem phased doing so because he's playing with a solid D man behind him. He knows he can take advantage of his great vision, his great speed, and frankly, his great shot as well. So looking at him for maybe the 21-22 season, I can see him playing in the NHL on a semi-regular basis. I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings kind of took him over to adapt to the smaller rink and moved him between the AHL and the NHL just to get him acquainted a bit, and then just giving him a tape of Drew Doughty and see, this is what this guy does. So, but because, I mean, I love the guys. He's so awesome to watch. I compare him, and the comparison is quite natural between him and Albert Johansson of Färjestad, who is a Detroit Red Wings draft prospect. They're both offensively gifted. They both kind of need to improve their physical aspect of their game, but they can be physical if need be. I really like them, and I really like Helge Grunstrom playing. It's a joy to watch, to be honest.
Awesome. Well, something for fans in LA and Ontario to look forward to. Carlin, before we let Sixten go, anything else you want to ask him?
Well, I just said Carl Grunstrom's goal was against the Ducks. And I just want to correct myself. It was the Coyotes. So
all right.
The only thing I was hooked on, I was like, oh shoot, I messed that up. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about your T-shirt real quick before you go. Why did you choose this one, and who is Iced Earth? Let us know.
They're a heavy metal band based out of Tampa, Florida. I really like them. I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. Normally I love the Iron Maiden. I love heavy metal, but I figured I should go some sort of North American route today, speaking to you guys, and the closest I could get was Tampa, Florida. So at least I'm in the right country.
Love that. Had to have fans hear that too. It's very thoughtful of you.
No problem.
Thanks for joining. Oh, before we do go though, Sixten, you want to tell people where they can find your work and find you on Twitter?
Oh yeah, I'm at Funquist, Funqvist. I do run the only English-speaking SHL podcast out there. It's called Across the Pond. We've tried to get guests on every episode. We're failing to do so, but we're trying. We've had a couple of well-known faces such as Brendan Morrison on. We've had Eddie Lack. We've had other players coming in and play in the SHL having joined us. Yeah. And we're looking into women's hockey a bit more now, so it's kind of awesome.
That's great.
Awesome. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining, Sixten. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.